There is one measure we most often use to judge how rich a country really is. It is the income that falls to each person, what we call income per person. And by this measure, in the year 2025, something quiet but remarkable happened. Taiwan's income per person overtook South Korea's, and for the first time, Japan's as well. Passing South Korea took more than 2 decades, and the gap widened further the next year. According to the latest projection from the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, in nominal terms for 2026, Taiwan's income per person reaches about $42,000. South Korea at about $37,000 and Japan at about $36,000 both sit below it. Two economies that once symbolized the wealth of Asia have been passed side by side by this island of 23 million people. On paper, it is a perfect success story. And yet inside Taiwan, the reaction to this news was strangely muted. Many people asked instead, they say, we have grown richer than Japan, so why do I not feel it at all? That very question is where this story begins. To unravel this paradox, we first need to understand how that number, income per person, is actually built. It is simply the total income a place earns, divided by the number of people. In other words, it is an average, and an average has one well-known weakness. When a very small group takes a very large share, the average can climb even while everyone else stands still. Picture 10 people in a room. If the income of just one of them explodes, the average income of all 10 jumps upward, even though the other 9 have exactly the same money in the bank as before. So who was the small group in Taiwan whose income exploded like that? You can probably already guess. It is the companies that make the semiconductors that run the modern world, and at their peak, a single company above all. Semiconductors make up about 1/5 of Taiwan's economy, and if we narrow it to what the island sells abroad, their weight is even clearer. Together with artificial intelligence hardware, they account for around 80% of exports. So when this sector enjoys the greatest boom in its history, the island's average income naturally soars along with it. The real question is what comes next. Into whose pockets did that new wealth actually go? Here comes the number at the very heart of this story. The income a society newly earns splits into 2 broad streams: the share that goes to working people as wages, and the share that stays with companies and capital as profit. In Taiwan, over the past 3 decades, that scale has tilted steadily toward capital. Of all the money the economy earned, the portion returned as wages fell from around 50% in the early 1990s to the low 40s today. And when we narrow the view to the recent peak of the boom, the tilt grows sharper still. In 2025, income from the electronics sector, which includes semiconductors, jumped by more than 8.5% in a single year, the largest rise of any industry. Yet in that same year, the real wage of an ordinary worker, adjusted for prices, rose by just 1.3%. While the income of the few at the center of the boom soared, the wallets of the many stayed essentially still. And here the trap of the average repeats itself, this time inside wages. In 2025, the average monthly pay of a Taiwanese worker was about $1,540. But the worker standing exactly in the middle, the median worker, earned only about $1,240 a month. A small number of high salaries pulled the average up by roughly 25%, making it look far higher than what most people actually receive. This is the real picture the average had hidden. The larger share of the gains from the boom piled up as a capital share, not as wages, and even the part that did go to wages flowed toward a single sector: semiconductors. This gap does not live only inside statistical tables. It is drawn directly onto the map of Taiwan. The companies that make the world's chips are not spread evenly across the island. Most of them are gathered in a single city in the north, Hsinchu. In the Hsinchu Science Park alone, more than 600 high-technology companies and over 160,000 workers are packed together, and at the very center stands the headquarters of TSMC. This is why people call the place Taiwan's Silicon Valley, and the fruit of the boom pools exactly along that map. In 2025, revenue from this one park in just the first half of the year passed $26 billion, an all-time high. Look at TSMC at the peak, and the size of the gap comes into full view. In 2025, the average pay for a single employee at this company, including performance bonuses, reached about $600,000. Since the yearly wage of an ordinary worker was somewhere around $15,000, that is close to 40 times as much. As a result, Hsinchu turned within one generation from rice fields into a city of more than 1 million people. Luxury apartments and department stores moved in, while the people who have nothing to do with semiconductors were pushed out of that very city instead. The American business news outlet Bloomberg described this boom as Taiwan minting millionaires while stoking inequality at the same time. The first Taiwan, the Taiwan of semiconductors, shines this brightly. The problem is that most people live not in this Hsinchu on the map, but in the other Taiwan beyond it. So, beyond Hsinchu, how has the life of most Taiwanese people flowed over the past 20 years? Here comes the heaviest fact of this whole story. The real wages of ordinary people, adjusted for prices, stood essentially still for nearly 20 years, from the early 2000s onward. Wages that stopped growing around 2002 only began to inch upward again in 2019. That long stagnation left its mark in the shape of generations. Those now in their 40s once knew higher starting salaries, and pay that rose year after year. But the young people who entered the workforce afterward had to start out from the very beginning on wages that had already stopped moving. As a result, the median wage in Taiwan today reaches only about 60% of that in advanced economies of a similar income level, and the wages of the lowest tier stay around half. The Taiwan in the statistics has clearly overtaken Japan, but the Taiwan in people's actual wallets still sits at just over half of its neighbors. And so people lean more and more on debt. The debt carried by all of Taiwan's households has now climbed past 90% of gross domestic product, the GDP, close to the entire income the island earns in a single year. And most of that debt is for buying a home. An ordinary Taiwanese household today spends nearly half of its disposable income just to repay what it owes. And the younger the generation, starting out on wages that had already stopped, the harder it is for savings to build up, and the deeper they lean on debt. On the same island, in the same year, two sentences are both true. The economic growth rate hit about 7%, its highest in over a decade, and at the very same time, the household finances of countless families did not improve at all. So one question remains. If the average income has overtaken the neighbors, but that does not reach most people, then what is that number even for? Let us not misunderstand. Taiwan's achievement itself is real. This island makes the most advanced chips in the world, and on that strength, it genuinely overtook the giant economies next to it. What this story reveals is only this. No matter how high a place's average climbs, it does not tell us how that wealth is divided. If the scale of income keeps tilting toward capital instead of wages, the Taiwan in the statistics can grow richer every year, while the people who live inside it stay exactly where they are. And this is not a story about Taiwan alone. It is a warning that even a society with the most successful high-technology industry in the world can still fail at the task of carrying that success into people's lives. So the real question is not how much income has grown, it is who that income went to. And that is precisely the question a dazzling average will never answer for you.